The cosmos had settled into a fragile, uneasy peace. Out. The echoes of the Titanomachiae still ringing in the chasm of Tartarus, where Prometheus' kin were forever bound. Yet here he stood, Prometheus, the forethinker, a Titan by birth, but a visionary by nature, serving the very Olympians who had imprisoned his family. He watched them, Zeus, Hera, Poseidon basking in the golden light of Olympus. Their power absolute, their concern for the nascent race of mortals practically non-existent. Mortals were mere shadows then, shivering on the cold. Damned earth, lacking purpose, lacking the spark that would elevate them from beasts to beings. Prometheus felt a profound, aching pity for them, a feeling alien to the cold, distant majesty of the Olympian pantheon. He was the architect of man, shaping them from mud and water, giving them form, but he saw they were incomplete, their potential locked away. They stumbled in the dark, preyed to every shadow and every chill wind, living brief, brutal lives that offered no chance for refinement or thought. The great halls of Olympus, meanwhile, glowed with an eternal, vital fire. The sacred flame that cooked their feasts, illuminated their minds, and warmed their immortal existence. This was the fire that Zeus had explicitly forbidden humanity to possess. Seeing it as a divine right, a clear line drawn between God and mortal, Prometheus watched humanity struggle and knew that the greatest gift, the true catalyst for transformation, was being withheld by cruel decree. The conflict first flared not with open defiance, but with a clever deception, a moment designed to draw a clear line between the offerings of men and the expectations of gods. The assembly was held at Macon, where Prometheus acted as the mortal's advocate, preparing the great feast and the sacrificial offerings. He killed a massive bull, but instead of dividing it fairly, split the offering into two distinct piles, challenging the king of the gods' perception. In the first pile, he wrapped the bones of the animal, carefully concealing them beneath a tempting, glistening layer of pure white fat. In the second pile, he placed the true meat, the nourishing parts, but hid them beneath the repulsive, unappetizing hide and entrails of the beast. "O mighty Zeus," Prometheus declared, his voice smooth and respectful, "choose which portion shall be the eternal offering of mortals to the gods." Zeus, known for his pride and his short temper, immediately fell for the trick, his eyes drawn to the dazzling white fat. He pointed, choosing the beautiful, deceptive pile of bones, believing he had secured the best portion for Olympus. When the fat was peeled back, revealing nothing but useless bone, a wave of cold fury washed over Olympus, shaking the very foundations of the mountain. Zeus understood instantly that he had been mocked, manipulated, and insulted by the Titan he had spared, and his wrath was absolute. "You chose based on appearance, mighty Zeus," Prometheus mused silently, knowing the cost of his audacious stunt would be severe. Zeus, incandescent with rage, roared his decree. "Since they are so clever as to attempt to cheat the gods, let them eat their meat raw and cold." He declared that henceforth the mortals would be denied the use of fire entirely, condemning them to a barbaric existence of darkness and fear. The decree sealed humanity's fate, forcing them back into a primal state, huddled together and incapable of creating warmth, light, or art. The air on Olympus grew heavy with the thunder of Zeus's indignation, a storm brewing not just in the skies, but in the heart of the divine king. Prometheus watched the mortals shivering in their caves, their eyes dull with cold and hunger, and his earlier regret hardened into an unshakable resolve. He knew the deception was necessary, not to secure the meat for man, but to provoke the reaction that would justify his next greater act of rebellion. The tragedy of humanity's existence, dictated by the petty spite of a powerful god, was now too great for the forethinker to ignore. He was poised on the brink of transformation, from loyal, if manipulative servant of Olympus, to humanity's ultimate sacrificial benefactor. The time for foresight was over. The time for action, reckless and defiant, had arrived. Prometheus knew the layout of Olympus better than any god save perhaps Hephaestus, the divine smith. He realized that the only way to save humanity from the eternal winter decreed by Zeus was to steal the very source of the god's glory. He slipped away from the feasting halls during a particularly boisterous celebration, becoming a silent shadow amongst the revelry. His destination was the workshop of Hephaestus, where the sacred fires of creation burned brightest, casting flickering, dangerous light on divine tools. The workshop was a marvel of clanking metal and white-hot heat, a place where raw energy was tamed into divine artifacts. He moved past the sleeping cyclopes and the automated bronze servants, his tightened senses anticipating every trap and every possible witness. He did not seek to steal a great amount, nor to damage the sacred flame. He only needed a small, concealed spark, the nucleus of fire itself. For this task, he brought a giant stalk of fennel, called a narthex, a plant with a hard outer rind but a soft, pithy, slow-burning interior. It was a humble, almost comical container for such a priceless, world-altering treasure, yet perfectly suited for its stealthy purpose. He reached the great forge where the celestial fire roared, its heat a palpable magnetic force drawing him in despite the immense risk. With a quick, practiced motion, Prometheus plunged the end of the fennel stalk into the very heart of the divine flame. The pith within the stalk ignited slowly, smoldering in a way that was nearly smokeless and completely invisible from the outside. He held his breath, waiting for the precious spark to take hold, the tension of the moment stretching into what felt like an eternity. No alarm sounded. No bolt of lightning struck him down. The gods were too absorbed in their nectar and their games to notice the momentary dimming of the fire's intensity. The act was completed. The celestial fire was now caged, hidden within the hollow shell of a common weed, ready to be transferred to the mortal world. Prometheus turned and fled the mountain, retracing his steps with a speed and silent grace that belied his massive, powerful form. He did not look back at Olympus, knowing that the punishment for this transgression would far outweigh the earlier mockery. This was not just a theft, it was a cosmic rebalancing, a challenge to the foundational authority of Zeus himself. He descended from the glowing peaks, moving through the clouds and the upper atmosphere, carrying the most dangerous and transformative gift in creation. The mortals were waiting, shivering, huddled in their caves, their hope long since extinguished by the constant darkness. They did not even know what he carried, or why the tall figure approached them with such grim determination. Prometheus reached the mouth of the largest cave, the air growing colder with the approaching night, and he paused for a final heavy moment. The weight of future human achievements, science, art, industry, rested on the pith-filled core of the fennel stalk in his hand. The weight of eternal torment, too, rested there, for he was about to sign his own sentence of perpetual suffering. He broke the stalk, and with a flash of light and a sudden burst of heat, the sacred fire was delivered to mankind. The immediate reaction from the mortals was fear. They recoiled from the searing light and the unpredictable energy. But Prometheus gently demonstrated its power, showing them how to feed the flame, how to cook the raw meat, and how to chase away the darkness. Their fear quickly dissolved into wonder, then relief, and finally, a blossoming sense of power and capability. Across the ocean of air, on the summit of Olympus, the rage of Zeus was already building, a slow, seismic tremor before the volcanic eruption. Festus, tending his forge later that night, noticed the strange, subtle change in the celestial fire, small but definite diminution of its divine potency. Zeus confirmed the act of treachery by observing the smoke rising from the mortal Lanza, bold, undeniable sign of cooked food and hearth fires. "The Titan has defied me," Zeus thundered, his voice shaking the pillars of the universe, "and for this he shall know an agony unending." The gift of fire immediately began its transformative work on humanity. Caves became homes, raw meat became nourishing sustenance, and fear gave way to planning. They could now forge tools, not just of wood and stone, but of bronze and iron, creating instruments of survival and, inevitably, instruments of war. With light, they could paint on the cave walls, telling stories and passing down knowledge, beginning the long journey toward civilization and philosophy. This was the fire that created science, that generated art, that eventually allowed mortals to look up at the stars and question their own existence. Prometheus, watching this flourishing, felt a brief, intense burst of satisfaction, knowing that his sacrifice had been entirely worthwhile. But the respite was short-lived, for the Olympians moved with devastating swiftness once their fury was fully engaged. Zeus commanded his servants Kratos strengthen Ba force. To descend upon the mortal realm and apprehend the traitorous Titan, they found Prometheus standing alone, quietly observing his new creations, having expected the retribution and accepting his fate without a fight. The two servants of Zeus, immense and unfeeling, bound Prometheus with unbreakable chains forged by Hephaestus himself. The chains were not mere metal. They were imbued with Olympian magic, designed to hold a titan of immense power indefinitely. The air around him crackled with the energy of pure, unbridled divine power as he was dragged away from the grateful, yet oblivious mortals. They ascended to the most desolate, cruel edge of the known world, the high, unforgiving cliffs of the Caucasus Mountains. Here, where the wind screamed and the cold bit deeper than any mortal could bear, his long punishment was destined to begin. Hephaestus, ordered by his father Zeus, approached the unmoving, defiant Titan, his heart heavy with pity and his hands unwillingly guided by the need for obedience. The smith god took his hammer and anvil and with a series of agonizing, echoing blows, drove the unbreakable chains deep into the bedrock of the mountain. Prometheus was not just chained. He was made part of the rock, his body stretched and held fast, forever facing the merciless elements. Kratos and Bia stood guard, ensuring the punishment was inflicted with the brutal efficiency demanded by their master. Prometheus let out no cry, no plea, maintaining a stoic silence that only intensified Zeus's anger when the report of the successful chaining reached Olympus. The initial punishment was the bondage. The transformation from a free-thinking architect to a permanent, immobile feature of the desolate landscape. But Zeus, always a master of prolonged psychological torment, was not yet finished with the Titan. The second, more terrifying punishment came swiftly, soaring on black wings from the distance, the arrival of the great eagle of Zeus. Every day, the massive bird would descend upon the helpless Titan, digging its razor talons into his immortal flesh. The eagle would then viciously tear out and devour his liver, the very organ that, in ancient understanding, was the seat of foresight and deep emotion. And every night, by the curse of his immortal nature, the liver would regenerate completely, making him ready for the renewed, identical agony of the following day. This cycle of healing and torment transformed Prometheus, the clever benefactor, into a figure of pure, unending tragedy and defiance. He was a beacon of suffering, a monument to the price of disobedience and the cost of truly transformative charity. He had given them fire, the instrument of their civilization, and received in return the eternal fire of agony, a gift he knew was coming and yet accepted willingly. For centuries he endured, his silence a greater insult to Zeus than any spoken defiance, a living testament to the fact that his will remained unbroken. The gift of fire remains with us, an undeniable heritage from the chained Titan who dared to choose humanity over the cold decree of the gods. Every light we turn on, every meal we cook, every engine we ignite, is a tiny ember of the sacred flame stolen from Olympus. The story of Prometheus is the ultimate exploration of the price of altruism, teaching us that the greatest gifts demand the greatest sacrifices. He embodies the transformative figure, the one who takes on eternal suffering so that others may experience light and progress. His tragedy is not in the pain he endured, but in the necessity of that pain for the progress of a race he chose to champion. Prometheus gave us the power to build cities and empires, but he paid for it by becoming an empire of suffering, bound forever to the Caucasus peak. His story reminds us that every step forward, every great leap of transformation, comes with a corresponding, crushing cost. Thank you for watching the full story. It's Prometheus, the gift that cost everything. If this tale of tragedy and defiance resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to Storycraft Studio for more profound myths and legends.